David Lammy, who has 2 minutes to this question.
We all know the numbers. The backlog of criminal cases in the Crown Court has grown to more than 54,000. Including the Magistrates' Court, it's reached more than 457,000 cases. Serious criminal cases are being delayed for up to 4 years. Convictions are up by far their lowest this decade. Estimates show that the current scale of increase in the backlog would take 10 years to clear at pre-pandemic rates. But numbers do not tell the whole story. Behind criminal cases, there are victims of rape, robbery, domestic abuse and violent assault. Each of these victims is being denied the speedy justice that our society owes them. It has been repeated many times before, but it is true. Justice delayed is justice denied. This is not just the case because of the pain delays cause victims and the wrongly accused. It's because delays to justice can affect the verdict. On Tuesday, 4 criminal watchdogs for England and Wales warned of grave concerns over the impact of the court backlog. Victims and witnesses may avoid the justice system entirely because of the delays. Witnesses may be unable to recall events properly so many years after the event. As a responsible opposition, we accept that the pandemic has caused unprecedented challenges for the justice system. However, we do not accept the government's presentation of the backlog as a crisis that's only resulted from coronavirus. Before the pandemic, the Crown Court backlog stood at 39,000 cases. This figure resulted from successive Conservative governments' sustained attacks on the justice system, an entire decade of court closures, cuts and reduced sitting days. Blackfriars Crown Court was sold off by the government in December 2019. It's now sitting empty, but rented out as a film set by the developer for a new series of Top Boy. He says recovery, but meanwhile the government is paying through the nose for Nightingale Courts a stone throw away. 600 court staff, judges, lawyers, jurors tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 7 weeks. A pilot scheme for lateral flow tests has now been authorised at 2 courts, just in London and Manchester, but a pilot scheme is not good enough, and neither is the plexiglass. Where are the lateral flow tests implemented across the court system? He knows this is a serious problem and we are a long way from recovery. So can he tell the House why the pitiful 19 Nightingale courts he has managed to deliver falls so short of the 200 that Her Majesty's Court Service said was needed? Can he tell the House why lateral flow tests are not being trialled across the whole country after 11 years of incompetence and cuts? Can he admit that his government failed to fix the roof while the sun was shining?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. The Shadow Justice Secretary referred to the number of cases outstanding in the Magistrates' Court, 460,000. What he neglected to mention to the House was that after the first lockdown, that peaked at 525,000 and has come down since then by 65,000 cases as that caseload reduces relentlessly, month on month, as our system recovers. He mentioned waiting times. Of course, we don't want to see very long waiting times, but I can tell him that for remand cases that had their first hearing in November, the clear majority will have their trials by July of this year, and for bail cases, the clear majority will have their trial heard by December of this year. He mentions the report, which I've read carefully. Regrettably, its authors, who do not inspect HMCTS, did not engage with HMCTS prior to finalising it, which was regrettable. He mentions witnesses and victims, who are at the heart of everything we do. Those vulnerable witnesses, where it's appropriate, can give evidence under Section 28, recorded in advance, or well in advance of the trial, in order to avoid issues with forgetting particular evidence. And I would strongly encourage the CPS, defence, judges and other court users to use this Section 28 facility. Now, he mentioned, Mr Speaker, the number of cases outstanding in the Crown Court. He said before the pandemic he claimed the system was in bad shape. He mentioned the 39,000 outstanding Crown Court cases outstanding in March of last year before the pandemic. What he forgot to mention, Mr Speaker, was that when Labour left office in 2010, it wasn't 39,000, it was 47,000, considerably higher. He talked about cuts. I anticipated he might, so I looked up the HMCTS budget, which in 2011 was 1.65 billion. It's gone up by 200 million to 1.85 million. He asks about the number of courtrooms and court centres. As I said, we now have 290 operational, COVID-safe Crown Court jury trial rooms, significantly more than we had before COVID. And as I said in my first answer, in the Magistrates' Court, the outstanding caseload has been declining relentlessly, month on month, every month since August, and in the Crown Court, disposals exceeded receipts, so the lines crossed for the first time in the full week before Christmas. And finally, Mr Speaker, he asked about COVID and COVID safe. Of course, Public Health England and Public Health Wales have signed off our courts as COVID safe. The number of HMCTS staff testing positive is in line with what you would expect in the general population. It follows the general population. It's no higher, it's no lower. And lateral flow testing is available at local authority lateral flow testing sites. We're exploring whether we can roll it out more fully. But he asked finally about the record of this government on criminal justice. The most authoritative source of data is, of course, the Crime Survey. It's the only ONS-approved set of crime statistics. And crime in the last 10 years under this government has fallen, 9.5 million down to about 5.6, a 41% reduction in crime, according to the Crime Survey. Those numbers speak louder than words. Our record is a good one.